Every day, millions of families gather around their televisions to watch game shows, expecting nothing more than entertainment and maybe a few laughs. But sometimes, television becomes the stage for life-changing moments that remind us why human connection matters more than any prize money. What happened on a Tuesday afternoon in September 2024, during a routine Family Feud taping, would leave host Steve Harvey unable to speak, an entire studio audience in tears, and viewers around the world witnessing the power of love transcending time and circumstance. This is the true story of how a simple family game show became the setting for one of the most emotional adoption reunions ever captured on television. It's a story about second chances, the courage to seek truth, and how some bonds are so strong that not even years of separation can break them. Asterisk, asterisk. If this story touches your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories that celebrate the beautiful complexity of family and love. Asterisk, asterisk. The Williams family from Detroit had been selected to compete on Family Feud through the show's standard application process. What the producers didn't know was that this seemingly ordinary family carried an extraordinary secret that would soon unfold in the most unexpected way. 22-year-old Sarah Williams stood confidently at the Family Feud podium, her shoulder-length brown hair neatly styled, wearing a simple blue dress that her adoptive mother had carefully chosen for the occasion. She had grown up knowing she was adopted, and the Williams family had always been open about her origin story. Her adoptive parents, Michael and Janet Williams, had raised her with unconditional love since she was 6 months old, providing her with every opportunity and filling their home with warmth, laughter, and stability. The Williams family represented the beautiful reality of modern American families. Love comes in many forms, and family is defined by bonds of choice as much as by biology. Michael worked as a high school teacher, Janet as a nurse, and they had created a nurturing environment where Sarah thrived academically and personally. She had graduated from the University of Michigan with honors and was working as a social worker, inspired by her own adoption experience to help other children find loving homes. Standing across from the Williams family was the Rodriguez family from Phoenix, Arizona. Maria Rodriguez, 45, was a single mother who had brought her 3 children, Carlos, 23, Elena, 19, and Diego, 16, to compete on the show. What no one in the studio knew, including Sarah herself, was that Maria Rodriguez had been searching for her biological daughter for over 2 decades. 23 years earlier, Maria had been a frightened two-year-old college student who had made the most difficult decision of her life. Unable to provide for a child while completing her education, and with no family support, she had chosen adoption, believing it would give her daughter the best possible chance at life. She had specifically requested a closed adoption, thinking it would be easier for everyone involved to move forward without contact. The pregnancy had been unexpected, resulting from a brief relationship with a fellow student who disappeared when he learned about the baby. Maria had struggled through morning sickness while maintaining her grades, worked 2 part-time jobs to pay for prenatal care, and faced judgment from some family members who couldn't understand her decision. Her own mother had suggested she drop out of school and raise the baby, but Maria knew that would mean a life of poverty and limited opportunities for both of them. She had spent countless hours researching adoption agencies, reading about prospective families, and carefully selecting the couple who would raise her daughter. The Williams family had stood out immediately. Their application showed a stable marriage, financial security, and a deep longing for a child they couldn't conceive naturally. Maria had read their letter dozens of times, crying each time they described the nursery they had already prepared, and their dreams of reading bedtime stories and teaching their child to ride a bike. The day of the birth had been both the most beautiful and most heartbreaking of Maria's life. She had held her daughter for 3 hours, memorizing every detail of her tiny face, whispering promises about the wonderful life she would have, and making a mental photograph of the perfect little fingers and toes. When the social worker came to take the baby to her new family, Maria had kissed her forehead one last time and whispered, "Mommy loves you. Always remember that." For over 2 decades, Maria had wondered about her daughter every single day. She had completed her education, built a successful career as a school counselor, and raised 3 more children. But there wasn't a birthday, holiday, or quiet moment when she didn't think about the baby girl she had held for only a few precious hours before saying goodbye forever. Every March 15th, Maria would light a candle and say a prayer for her daughter's happiness and health. She had created a mental ritual of wondering what grade she was in, what subjects she liked, whether she played sports or instruments, if she had friends who made her laugh. Maria had imagined first days of school, lost teeth, Christmas mornings, and graduation ceremonies she would never witness. When she married her husband Jorge 5 years later, she had told him about the daughter she had placed for adoption. Jorge had understood and supported her decision, and when they had Carlos, Elena, and Diego, he had always encouraged Maria to keep space in her heart for her first child. The three younger children had grown up knowing they had an older sister somewhere in the world, and they had often wondered aloud what she might be like. Steve Harvey approached the podium with his characteristic energy, ready to start another entertaining episode of Family Feud. He had hosted thousands of episodes and met countless families, each with their own stories and dynamics. But something about this particular taping felt different, though he couldn't quite put his finger on what it was. All right, folks, we've got the Williams family from Detroit taking on the Rodriguez family from Phoenix, Steve announced to the enthusiastic studio audience. Let's meet our families and see what we're working with today. As Steve moved down the line, introducing each family member, he noticed something unusual. When he reached Sarah Williams, she seemed momentarily distracted, her attention drawn to the Rodriguez family standing across from her. There was something about Maria Rodriguez that felt familiar, though Sarah couldn't explain why. It was like looking at a distant memory she couldn't quite grasp. Maria, meanwhile, was experiencing something even more profound. The moment she saw Sarah, her heart began racing in a way she hadn't felt in years. There was something about the young woman's facial structure, her mannerisms, even the way she tucked her hair behind her ear, small details that triggered a maternal recognition she had buried deep in her heart. Sarah had always been curious about her biological family, but her adoptive parents had explained that it was a closed adoption, meaning no contact information was available. They had provided her with basic medical information and the knowledge that her birth mother had been a young college student who wanted to ensure her daughter had opportunities she couldn't provide at the time. Sarah respected this decision and had built a fulfilling life with the Williams family, though she occasionally wondered about her origins. Growing up, Sarah had sometimes felt different from her adoptive family in small ways. She was more artistic while they were analytical, more outgoing while they were reserved, more drawn to helping professions while they excelled in technical fields. But these differences had never created distance. Instead, the Williams family had celebrated Sarah's unique qualities and encouraged her to explore her interests fully. In college, Sarah had taken several psychology courses that covered attachment theory and adoption studies. She had learned that it was completely normal for adopted children to experience curiosity about their biological origins, and that this curiosity didn't reflect any dissatisfaction with their adoptive families. This knowledge had helped her understand her own periodic wonderings about her birth parents. Sarah had often imagined what her birth mother might look like, what kind of person she was, and whether they shared any common interests or traits. She had wondered if her birth mother thought about her, if she had other children, if she ever regretted her decision. These thoughts weren't constant or overwhelming, but they visited her during quiet moments, especially on her birthday each year. The adoption had taken place through a reputable agency in Michigan that specialized in placing children with loving families. At the time, closed adoptions were more common, designed to provide clean breaks and new beginnings for all parties involved. The agency had since changed its policies to encourage more open communication when possible, recognizing that many birth parents and adopted children benefit from some level of contact. Sarah had actually contacted the agency when she turned 18. Hoping to leave a letter in her file in case her birth mother ever inquired about her. The letter had expressed gratitude, shared updates about her life and achievements, and indicated that she would be open to contact if her birth mother ever wanted to reach out. However, the agency had explained that her birth mother had never made any inquiries, which Sarah had accepted with understanding rather than hurt. Neither Sarah nor Maria had been looking for each other actively, though both had registered with various adoption reunion databases over the years. Due to the closed nature of the adoption and different last names, their paths had never crossed through these formal channels. Sarah had registered under both her birth name and adoptive name, while Maria had registered under her maiden name from the time of the adoption, creating a mismatch that prevented the databases from connecting them. As the game progressed through its normal rounds, both Sarah and Maria found themselves struggling to concentrate on the questions. The inexplicable connection they both felt was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore, yet neither wanted to disrupt the show or embarrass their families based on what might simply be wishful thinking. Throughout her life, Sarah had developed a healthy relationship with her adoption story. The Williams family had raised her to understand that her birth mother's decision came from love and sacrifice, not abandonment. However, standing in that studio, looking at Maria Rodriguez, Sarah felt an unexplainable pull that she had never experienced before. Every time Maria laughed, spoke, or moved, something deep in Sarah's memory stirred, not a conscious memory, but something cellular and profound. Sarah found herself studying Maria's features during commercial breaks. The shape of her eyes, the way she gestured when she spoke, even her laugh seemed familiar in a way that transcended logic. Yet Sarah didn't want to project her hopes onto an innocent coincidence. She had learned through her work as a social worker that coincidences happen, and reading too much into every situation could lead to disappointment. For Maria, the recognition was even more intense. As a mother of three, she knew the deep, instinctive bond that exists between parents and children. Looking at Sarah felt like looking at a ghost from her past, not frightening, but overwhelming in its emotional intensity. She noticed details that others might miss, the way Sarah bit her lower lip when concentrating, identical to a habit Maria had as a young woman. The way Sarah's eyes crinkled when she smiled, exactly like Maria's father, Sarah's biological grandfather. But Maria also carried the weight of guilt and uncertainty. She had made a decision 23 years ago to let her daughter go, believing it was best for both of them. Did she have any right now to disrupt Sarah's life based on a feeling? What if she was wrong? What if she was right, but Sarah wanted nothing to do with her? The years of wondering had prepared her for many scenarios, but not for this spontaneous public possibility. The other family members began noticing the tension. Carlos Rodriguez, Maria's eldest son, saw his mother's distracted behavior and kept asking if she was feeling all right. Elena and Diego were too focused on the game to notice, but they sensed something was different about their mother's energy. On the Williams side, Michael and Janet noticed their daughter's unusual behavior. Sarah was typically confident and focused, but she seemed emotionally preoccupied in a way they had never seen before. Janet, with her nursing background, recognized signs of emotional overwhelm and quietly checked with Sarah during a commercial break. "Honey, are you feeling okay? You seem a little overwhelmed," Janet whispered. "I'm fine, Mom," Sarah replied, using the title that had always come naturally. "Just excited about being here." But even as she said it, she couldn't take her eyes off Maria Rodriguez. Steve Harvey had hosted enough family shows to recognize when something unusual was happening among his contestants. He noticed the way Sarah and Maria seemed drawn to each other, the way they both appeared distracted from the game itself. His experience had taught him that families often came to his show carrying more than just hopes of winning money. They carried stories, secrets, and sometimes life-changing possibilities. During one commercial break, Steve found himself watching the interaction between the two families more closely. He saw Maria approach Sarah near the snack table, and he witnessed a conversation that seemed to carry unusual weight for two strangers. "Excuse me," Maria said softly, her voice trembling slightly. "I hope this doesn't sound strange, but can I ask where you're from originally?" Sarah looked up, surprised by the question, but feeling an odd comfort in Maria's presence. "I was born in Michigan, but I was adopted as a baby. I grew up in Detroit with my family here." Maria's breath caught. "Adopted? Do you mind me asking when you were born?" "March 15th, 2002, Sarah replied, and she watched as Maria's face went completely pale. The conversation continued for only a minute before they were called back to their positions, but both women were visibly shaken. They had just shared the first pieces of a puzzle that was beginning to form a picture neither had dared hope for. Both women faced a profound ethical dilemma. They were participants in a television show that was being recorded for national broadcast. Whatever happened next would potentially be seen by millions of viewers. They had to consider not just their own feelings, but the impact on their families, the other contestants, and the show itself. Sarah wrestled with questions about loyalty to her adoptive family. The Williams had given her everything, loved her unconditionally, and supported her dreams. Was it somehow disloyal to pursue a connection with her biological mother? Would it hurt the people who had raised her? Maria faced different but equally complex concerns. She had 3 other children who knew about their sister but had never met her. How would this reunion affect them? She also worried about overwhelming Sarah, who had built a life and identity that didn't necessarily include her birth mother. Despite the emotional undercurrents, the game continued. Both families tried to focus on the questions and support their teams, but the quality of their gameplay was clearly affected. The Williams family, typically sharp and coordinated, missed several easy answers. The Rodriguez family, usually energetic and playful, seemed subdued and distracted. Steve Harvey, with his decades of experience reading people and situations, began to sense that something significant was developing. He had hosted emotional moments before, but this felt different, more profound, and potentially life-changing. As the show moved into its final round, Steve Harvey made a decision that would define not just this episode, but his legacy as a host who understood that sometimes entertainment must take a back seat to humanity. During what should have been a routine commercial break, he approached both families. "Ladies and gentlemen," Steve said, his voice unusually serious, "I've been doing this show for a long time, and I've learned to recognize when something special is happening. I can see that we have more than just a game show happening here today." He looked directly at Sarah and then at Maria. "I don't know what's going on between you two ladies, but I can see it's important. And if there's one thing I've learned in my years on television, it's that some moments are bigger than any show." Steve invited both women to the center of the stage, away from their families but still in view of the cameras. What followed was one of the most authentic and emotionally powerful conversations ever captured on a game show. "Sarah," Steve said gently, "I can see something is weighing on your heart. Do you want to share what you're feeling?" Sarah looked at Maria, then at her adoptive family, then back at Steve. Her voice was quiet but clear when she spoke. "Mr. Harvey, I've been adopted since I was a baby, and I love my family more than anything in the world. But when I look at Mrs. Rodriguez, I feel something I've never felt before. It's like looking at myself, but older." Steve turned to Maria. "And Mrs. Rodriguez, what are you experiencing right now?" Maria's composure finally broke. Tears began streaming down her face as she spoke. 23 years ago, I made the hardest decision of my life. I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl on March 15th, 2002, and I placed her for adoption because I wanted her to have the best possible life. I have thought about her every single day since then." The studio fell completely silent. Even the production crew stopped what they were doing to listen. Sarah's legs nearly gave out as the words hit her. March 15th, 2002. "I know, baby," Maria whispered. "I know." What happened next showcased why Steve Harvey had become one of America's most beloved television personalities. Instead of sensationalizing the moment or rushing to conclusions, he created space for both women to process what was happening. "Ladies," he said, his own voice thick with emotion, "this is bigger than any game show. This is about family and love and God bringing people together in ways we don't always understand." He turned to the Williams family. "Michael and Janet, you raised an incredible young woman. The love you gave her is written all over her heart. And Maria, the sacrifice you made 23 years ago has led to this moment right here." The response from both families demonstrated the best of human nature. Michael and Janet Williams immediately embraced the possibility that this could be Sarah's birth mother, understanding that love multiplies rather than divides. They approached Maria with open arms and grateful hearts. "If you're Sarah's birth mother," Janet said through her own tears, "then you gave us the greatest gift imaginable. Thank you for the courage you showed 23 years ago." Michael nodded in agreement. "Sarah is the light of our lives. If you brought her into this world, then we owe you everything." Carlos, Elena, and Diego Rodriguez were experiencing their own range of emotions. They had grown up knowing they had a sister somewhere in the world, and the possibility that she was standing right there was both thrilling and overwhelming. After the cameras stopped rolling and the studio lights dimmed, Both families faced the reality of navigating this unexpected new relationship. The initial euphoria of the reunion was followed by a period of careful adjustment, as everyone processed what had happened and what it meant for their futures. The Williams family invited Maria and her children to their hotel for dinner that evening, creating the first opportunity for extended conversation without cameras or audiences. The meal lasted 4 hours as stories were shared, questions were answered, and two families began the delicate process of figuring out how to blend their lives. Maria brought photo albums from her phone and laptop, sharing images from her pregnancy, the hospital, and the few precious hours she had spent with newborn Sarah. She showed pictures of herself at Sarah's current age, revealing striking similarities that made everyone marvel at genetics and inheritance. She also shared photos of Carlos, Elena, and Diego as children, giving Sarah her first glimpse of the siblings she had never known existed. The Williams family reciprocated by sharing their own photo archives. Sarah's first steps, Christmas mornings, school plays, graduations, and countless everyday moments that Maria had missed but now could witness through their documentation. Michael had created detailed scrapbooks over the years, thinking that if Sarah ever wanted to share her life with her birth family, they would have visual proof of her happiness and growth. That first evening revealed both the similarities and differences between the families. Sarah and Maria shared an almost identical laugh, the same habit of touching their necklaces when nervous, and similar expressions when concentrating. But Sarah had also clearly inherited traits from the Williams family, through years of modeling their measured way of speaking, their analytical approach to problems, and their quiet sense of humor. The children's meeting was particularly touching. Elena, at 19, was closest to Sarah's age and felt an immediate connection. Diego, the youngest at 16, was initially shy, but gradually warmed up as Sarah showed genuine interest in his soccer achievements and art projects. Carlos, as the oldest of Maria's children, felt a protective instinct towards Sarah, while also wanting to ensure his mother wasn't hurt if the relationship didn't develop as hoped. Both families agreed to take things slowly, recognizing that while the reunion was miraculous, building lasting relationships would require time, patience, and realistic expectations. They exchanged contact information and made tentative plans for future visits, understanding that geography and existing family obligations would require creative scheduling. The day after the show aired, both families found themselves thrust into an unexpected spotlight. News crews appeared at their homes, reporters called constantly, and social media exploded with comments and messages from viewers around the world. Steve Harvey's production team had anticipated this possibility and provided both families with media training and legal support to help them navigate the attention. They worked with publicists to manage interview requests and ensure that any media appearances were handled professionally and respectfully. Both families decided to do a few carefully selected interviews to share their story authentically, rather than let others speculate or create fictional narratives. They appeared on morning talk shows, gave interviews to adoption advocacy magazines, and participated in a documentary about modern adoption that was already in production. The media attention, while overwhelming at times, also brought positive opportunities. Book publishers approached them about writing their story. Colleges invited them to speak about adoption and family dynamics, and adoption organizations asked them to serve as ambassadors for healthy reunion practices. Sarah shared that she had always been drawn to social work and helping children, not knowing that her birth mother had become a school counselor with a similar passion for helping young people navigate difficult circumstances. Steve Harvey's emotional moment. Steve Harvey, known for his quick wit and ability to handle any situation, found himself overwhelmed by the magnitude of what was happening. The man who had seen everything in his decades of entertainment was witnessing something that transcended show business. "In all my years of hosting," he said, wiping away his own tears, "I have never seen anything like this." He made a decision that would become legendary in television history. He stopped the game and dedicated the rest of the show to this reunion. The producers, recognizing the significance of the moment, agreed to air the episode as a special, with the traditional game taking a back seat to the human drama unfolding. The moment when Sarah and Maria finally embraced was captured by every camera in the studio, but no camera could fully convey the emotional power of a mother and daughter finding each other after more than 2 decades apart. It wasn't just a hug, it was 23 years of wondering, hoping, and loving from a distance finally finding expression. "I have never stopped loving you," Maria whispered into Sarah's ear. "Not for one single day." "I felt it," Sarah replied. "I don't know how, but I felt it." What made this reunion even more special was how naturally both families came together. The Williams and Rodriguez families didn't compete for Sarah's affection, they celebrated the expansion of love that her presence brought to everyone involved. Elena and Diego finally got to meet the sister they had heard about their entire lives. Carlos, as the eldest, felt a special responsibility to welcome Sarah into their family while respecting the family that had raised her. "You have two families now," he told her, "and all of us love you." The reunion of Sarah Williams and Maria Rodriguez became more than just a television moment. It became a powerful example of how love transcends time, circumstances, and even the most difficult decisions. Their story offers profound lessons for families touched by adoption, anyone facing impossible choices, and all of us who believe in the power of human connection. Sarah's story teaches us that having an open heart toward our origins doesn't diminish the love we have for those who raised us. Her immediate acceptance of Maria came from a place of completeness rather than emptiness. She wasn't looking to replace her adoptive family. She was ready to expand her understanding of family itself. "Love doesn't divide," Sarah said in interviews that followed. "It multiplies. Meeting my birth mother didn't make me love my adoptive family less. It made me understand how much love I was capable of feeling." Maria's decision 23 years earlier exemplified the most difficult kind of love, the love that lets go for the benefit of another. Her story resonates with birth parents everywhere who have made similar sacrifices, often carrying guilt and grief that others don't understand. "I didn't give her away," Maria explained to reporters. "I gave her the chance at the life I couldn't provide." Seeing who she became proves that love sometimes means making the hardest choice possible. Michael and Janet Williams demonstrated that adoptive parents who are secure in their love don't fear biological connections, they celebrate them. Their immediate support of Sarah's reunion showed the strength that comes from knowing that love is not a competition. "We knew this day might come," Janet said, "and we always hoped that if it did, it would be beautiful." Steve Harvey's handling of the situation demonstrated exceptional emotional intelligence and humanity. He could have exploited the moment for ratings or dramatized it for entertainment value. Instead, he created a safe space for genuine emotion and authentic connection. "Television can be a powerful force for good," Steve said later. "Sometimes our job isn't to entertain, it's to bear witness to the beautiful complexity of human love." The episode became one of the most watched in Family Feud history. But more importantly, it sparked conversations about adoption, family, and love that reached far beyond the television screen. Sarah and Maria's story offers practical wisdom for families navigating adoption, reunion, and blended family dynamics. The decision to place a child for adoption comes from love, not abandonment. Grief and wonder about your child are natural and valid. If reunion happens, approach it with patience and respect for the family that raised your child. Your sacrifice enabled your child to thrive. Take pride in that courage. Security in your relationship allows you to support your child's curiosity about their origins. Love isn't diminished by biological connections, it's expanded by them. Your role in your child's life is irreplaceable and separate from their birth-family relationships. Openness to reunion shows confidence in the love you've built together. Curiosity about biological family doesn't indicate dissatisfaction with adoptive family. You have the right to pursue or not pursue birth-family connections based on your own needs. Reunion requires emotional preparation and realistic expectations. You can love and honor multiple sets of parents simultaneously. Love comes in many forms and creates many different types of family bonds. Support systems grow stronger when they're inclusive rather than exclusive. Some connections transcend explanation and should be honored. Family is ultimately about love, commitment, and choice as much as biology. Asterisk. In the months following the reunion, Sarah developed a beautiful relationship with both families. She spent holidays rotating between Detroit and Phoenix, creating new traditions that honored both family systems. The Williams and Rodriguez families became close friends, bonded by their mutual love for Sarah. Maria was able to share Sarah's childhood with the Williams family, providing photos and stories from her pregnancy and the first few hours after Sarah's birth. In return, Michael and Janet shared 23 years of memories, report cards, dance recitals, and graduation photos with Maria. "We didn't lose a daughter," Michael said. "We gained an extended family." Inspired by their experience, Sarah and both families created the Second Chances Foundation, a nonprofit organization that supports adoption reunion services, counseling for birth parents, and resources for adoptive families. The foundation has helped hundreds of families navigate the complex emotions surrounding adoption and reunion. The organization focuses on education, emotional support, and advocacy for adoption policies that consider the long-term well-being of all parties involved. They work to reduce the stigma around adoption and promote understanding of the various ways families are formed. Steve Harvey's ongoing role. Steve Harvey became a champion for adoption awareness, using his platform to share resources and support families touched by adoption. He established a scholarship fund in Sarah's name for adopted students pursuing careers in social work or family counseling. "That day on the show changed me too," Steve has said. "It reminded me that television can be a powerful tool for good when we use it to celebrate love in all its forms." The episode sparked a movement of adoption reunions across the country. Adoption agencies reported increased interest in reunion services, and social media platforms saw thousands of families sharing their own adoption stories. Within 48 hours of the episode airing, the show's production office received over 10,000 emails from viewers sharing their own adoption experiences. Birth mothers wrote about the comfort they found in seeing Maria's courage and the positive reception she received. Adoptive parents shared how the episode had opened conversations with their children about their origins. Adopted individuals described feeling validated in their curiosity about their biological families. The National Adoption Registry reported a 300% increase in new registrations in the week following the broadcast. Social media support groups for adoption, triad members, birth parents, adoptive parents, and adopted individuals saw unprecedented growth as people sought community and resources for their own reunion journeys. Mental health professionals specializing in adoption noted increased appointments as families used the episode as a starting point for important conversations. Therapists reported that many families had watched the show together and were inspired to discuss adoption-related topics they had previously avoided. The story was covered by major news outlets, featured in adoption advocacy campaigns, and studied by social workers as an example of healthy reunion dynamics. It became part of cultural conversation about modern family structures and the various ways people create loving, supportive homes for children. Major adoption organizations invited Sarah and Maria to speak at conferences, where they emphasized the importance of preparation, realistic expectations, and respect for all parties involved in adoption. Their message consistently focused on love as an expandable resource, rather than a limited commodity that must be divided among family members. The episode also sparked discussions about the ethics of reality television and the responsibility of producers when real-life drama unfolds unexpectedly. Industry professionals praised the show's decision to handle the situation with dignity rather than sensationalizing it for ratings, setting a new standard for how television can address sensitive personal moments. Several other game shows and reality programs reached out to the Family Feud production team for guidance on handling similar unexpected situations, recognizing that their approach had created a template for ethical, compassionate television production. The episode was translated into multiple languages and broadcast internationally, resonating with families around the world who had been separated by various circumstances. Adoption organizations in countries with different cultural approaches to family separation used the story as an example of how Western-style reunions could be positive for all involved parties. International adoption agencies began incorporating the episode into their training materials for prospective parents, helping them understand the potential for future contact and the importance of maintaining open hearts toward their children's origins. Universities began using the Family Feud reunion as a case study in social work programs, demonstrating how unexpected circumstances can create opportunities for healing and connection. The story is now part of curriculum and adoption studies courses across the country. 5 years after the reunion, Sarah, Maria, and both families continue to thrive. Sarah married her longtime partner in a ceremony that included both sets of parents walking her down the aisle. Maria became a grandmother to Sarah's children, while Michael and Janet remained the grandparents who had raised her. The integration of the families has been so successful that they vacation together annually, alternating between destinations chosen by each family unit. What started as two separate families has become one large, loving, extended family that defies traditional categories. Sarah and Maria's story ultimately teaches us that love is the most powerful force in human experience. It can survive decades of separation, transcend difficult circumstances, and create connections that defy explanation. Their reunion reminds us that family is not just about biology or adoption papers. It's about the decision to love unconditionally and the courage to remain open to unexpected blessings. Family isn't about perfect circumstances, Sarah often says when sharing her story. It's about people choosing to love each other through whatever circumstances arise. The story of Sarah and Maria challenges all of us to examine our own capacity for love, understanding, and acceptance. In a world often divided by differences, their reunion shows what's possible when people approach each other with open hearts and generous spirits. Asterisk, asterisk. If their story has touched your heart and inspired you to believe in the power of love and second chances, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear about the beautiful ways family can be created, lost, and found again. Your engagement helps us continue sharing these powerful true stories that remind us of the very best of human nature. Asterisk, asterisk. Every week, we share true stories that celebrate love, resilience, and the unexpected ways life brings people together. From adoption reunions to long-lost friendships to acts of kindness that change lives forever, our channel is dedicated to the belief that every person has a story worth telling and every story has the power to inspire. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. Have you experienced an unexpected reunion? Do you have an adoption story to share? What moments in your own life have reminded you of the power of love and family? Your stories inspire our community and remind us that we're all connected by the universal experiences of love, loss, hope, and healing. Remember to turn on notifications so you never miss these inspiring true stories, and consider supporting our mission to spread hope and positivity by sharing our videos with friends and family who could use some inspiration in their lives. The story of Steve Harvey's most emotional moment continues to remind us that sometimes the most beautiful moments in life happen when we least expect them, and the most powerful force in the universe is the love that connects us all.